Oh, it was good. It went fine. I'm just working on a project at school. My capstone project.
Let me turn you up a little bit. I think it don't. It's a me thing. Don't you worry. Sometimes I turn down my Discord because my friends are just extremely loud people. You have those type of friends.
It happens.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Now you're blasting. All right. Awesome. Now we got you. How you doing, man?
Good. Doing well. How are you?
So I'm good. I just got a couple of things done for the stream, and now we are here. Been getting a little bit into Outrider lately, so that's been the big buzz nowadays. Um, so if for the people that don't know what the bonfire is, we are doing this is pretty much a segment, a podcast on three things: social media, gaming, and mental health. And we have the privilege of hearing streamers such as 2Fast and their stories behind their whole journey to where they are now. So thank you, 2Fast, for being here today. Appreciate that. Um, we are we usually do these later on, but you know what? That's what we do. We accommodate. We get things done. Um, so I got two rules, but you don't have to worry about one rule because you're not streaming. But the first rule is if there's a question you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer it. You just say pass, and then we'll move on. That's
Okay.
good.
Cool.
All right, man.
Fair.
Let's start with the demographics. Right. Let's get the boring stuff out of the way. So, name is Too Fast. Is there another name I'm calling you?
Not too fast is fine.
Too Fast is fine. Okay. And how old are you, Too Fast?
20.
20? You're a young bull.
Yes, sir.
Uh, and your gender?
I am a male.
Yeah. Okay. And race?
Well, that'd be white, Caucasian, whatever.
Yes, sir. And your ethnicity?
Wait, what would that be? Would that just be like American or something?
It's
Wait, would that
like
be
your
like
cultural background, pretty much, wherever
I
your
was
family hailed from.
I have no clue. This is probably what, white or Caucasian or something, or no?
we'll just say,
American?
we'll just say pass on that.
Bro, that's fine. Dude, I have no clue.
I swear, dude, ask your parents. It'll blow you away, man. It'll blow
Dude,
you away.
I really don't know.
And your gaming platform?
Just Twitch
Oh
mainly,
no, that
right?
that's your streaming platform.
Oh,
So you just answered my
Rocket
next
League,
question.
Rocket League.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, Twitch and Rocket League for the game.
You play on PC console?
PC.
Okay. Uh, and so out of your lifetime, how many years have you been gaming? Take a whole sum of it.
Ooh, 16. I've been playing since. I mean, since I could remember, but the earliest memory I have is when I was 4.
I, it's a common thing nowadays to hear that my earliest memories are just playing games, man.
Yep.
So how long have you been streaming? Just over your lifetime?
Right. Actually, it's 2 years and 10 months as of today. So
Congratulations.
almost 3 years. Thank you. A little weird to think about. Time's gone by quick.
Absolutely.
So I started on June. I forget now. I think it's June 6th or 7th. I think 7th, 2018.
Hmm. Have you noticed when you started streaming that time started to fly?
No, it definitely felt slow at first, but I'd say it's gotten a lot quicker maybe in the last year.
Okay.
I
Very
think part of that's
interesting.
just also the hustle and bustle of school as well.
That's true. And I can't wait to learn what you're studying and doing all that stuff. Do you consider yourself a full or part-time streamer?
I would say definitely part time. Right
Mm.
now, just with me being in school, that's where my focus is full time. On top of streaming, I also am a competitive Rocket League player. So I play. They have a collegiate league for North America, and so I play in that for my school, University of North Texas. And
Mm-hmm.
so from that, we also because it doesn't fall under NCAA, so we compete for prize money. And so in that regard, that in my head almost feels like almost like two different jobs in a sense, where it's not just streaming, but it's that as well,
That takes up a lot of your time, man, right?
and school.
And school, right, right. I mean, it's something you want to do and you want to
Oh
pursue,
yeah.
but it's time consuming to play competitive games for the most
Oh
part. I mean,
yeah.
it takes a lot of
Hmm.
practice. Um, what about so every stream? What is your average daily stream time?
Ooh, I am a definitely a night owl, so I
Mm-hmm.
end up starting. I'd probably say, well, it varies a little bit, but the goal for me right now is to try to be starting around 1 a.m. Central Time. Lately, it's been closer to 2 a.m. Central Time, and I usually
Mm-hmm.
stream for about 3 to 4 hours.
Okay, that's pretty decent. That's pretty good. You know, it's not too long. It's not too short. What about gaming? Aside from that, so you got your 3.5 hours that you're gaming and streaming. Any extra hours piled on?
Are you saying in a daily sense or in a weekly sense?
Daily sense.
Daily it fluctuates. So, for instance, the past few days I've barely played. I actually have taken a super like long break from streaming, like the past maybe 4 days, just because of school being busy. Things are kicking
Mm-hmm.
up with it being the end of the semester.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, day to day, it depends. Like I said, I've hardly played the last few days. Um, but I would say on average, just over the course of a week, um, I'd probably say days, probably like maybe 4 to 6 hours whenever I am playing.
Okay.
But again, there may be a day I don't play, and then the next day I play 8 to 10 hours. So, but just over the course of a week, what it comes out to for in a daily sense is probably 4 to 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it typically schools have their periods of time where it's really busy, and then it gets a little bit better, and then it gets really busy, and then it gets a little bit better. So we all know that
Yeah,
grind, man.
yeah. I'm
Um,
just hitting the really busy part again.
here we go. Hey, it must be tough, right? But what are you studying?
So I study mechanical engineering right now. So I'm a senior. I am actually graduating a little bit early. I'll be graduating a year early, but I'll get into that later. But so I graduate. My graduation day is May 1st, so I'm almost done.
Almost there, man. That's
Yeah,
awesome. That takes a lot of brain power to be in that field. I'll tell you what. Holy
yeah. It makes you
shnikes.
feel dumb really quick.
Yeah, I could not do it. I'm a people person. I couldn't handle technology. It just took me a while to even get to this point.
Yeah, I get that.
Oh man, but hey, all the strength to you, my homie. What about daily use of social media? So we have Twitch, right? We have those hours spent on Twitch, but what about like on Discord, Instagram, Snapchat?
So for me, I'm actually only on Twitter and Twitch mainly. So
Hmm.
I'd say just on my own, I don't post much on Twitter, but I'm
Hmm.
like leisurely on it a lot. I'd probably say a couple hours a day on average.
Okay, so we'll
And then
tag on.
the
Yeah, go
time
ahead.
I'm not on that, it's on Twitch usually.
Mm.
But overall, it's usually a few hours a day.
All right. It's pretty good. Takes a lot of restraint for yourself to not be on your phone all day or on the computer.
Yeah, it really should be a lot less. It should probably be closer to maybe 15 to 30 minutes, but it's been a few hours for a while.
It's better than most people out there. I'll tell you what. You're already that's a healthy number. I'll tell you what. What
I
about
appreciate it.
yeah, yeah, of course, man. Expect a ton of compliments today for this podcast, just so you know.
Okay, fair enough.
What about the number? So before you started streaming, what about the number of social media platforms? How many did you use, just kind of in total? So like before 2018.
Before 2018,
Mm-hmm.
um, number of platforms. Well, I watched Twitch starting summer 2017. I started Twitter late 2017. Before then, it was like personal platforms. I think like when I was younger, I think I used Facebook, and that was pretty much it. So nothing really. Like
Mm-hmm.
I never had an Instagram, never had Snapchat. Um, yeah, not much.
And have you seen that? increase now that you've started streaming?
Well, from a personal aspect, I'd
Mm-hmm.
say it's gone down more. From like a social gaming aspect, definitely gone up. Overall, it's definitely gone up, to answer your question.
Okay, absolutely. Around 5. All right, awesome. You passed the boring stuff.
Cool.
Talk about numbers is not my thing, but when it comes to the three topics we're talking about, it's always nice to get your take. So now we're
Yeah.
going to talk about before you became a streamer.
Okay.
When you were growing into games and you were just starting to figure out what is gaming and where do I fit in as a gamer, right? So when you first started gaming at the age of 4, what were you gaming?
Ooh, so I would play the old, I think it was Far Cry or Far Cry 2 with my brother. And we would just, I mean, because it of course had swearing and all that. And so my parents wouldn't let me listen to that as a 4-year-old. So I would just play like the multiplayer with my brother, and it was just me and him on a private map. And we would just be going at it. Outside of that, it was Game Boy, GameCube. I think that was it. I think it was just those three. A little bit of PC, but a lot of Game Boy, decent amount of GameCube.
Multiplayer. That's what really hooked you. It was playing against your brother. Tell me about that.
Um, well, it wasn't just that in itself. That was just an early
Mm.
memory of mine. I would say what I mean, I would say partly that, but yeah, playing against my brother was really big. It was just a form of, I guess, in hindsight, just connecting. There was a lot of laughs, a lot of funny moments
Mm-hmm.
that I can remember of playing it, dying laughing with him. But yeah, I guess in a sense, it's weird because I never thought about this till you're asking. Part of it was a challenge aspect of being able, just like sibling rivalry, if like a sibling like playing sports against each other. It
Mm-hmm.
was like the same type of aspect, obviously not with physical, like doing things physically, but
Mm-hmm.
just from a mental side, like, hey, I can like better my brother in this game, or I can like challenge myself to finish this level of Mario or whatever.
That's very interesting. You said you enjoyed the challenge. Like that was the first time you felt like you wanted to overcome obstacles because it was fun, right? Not because you felt like you had to. You know, at school we feel like we have to overcome certain oh my chair. We have to overcome all these challenges at school because we have to for letter grade, but when you do it for, you know, like Far Cry, you're doing it just like, oh, you know, I'm getting my aim a little bit better. Now I'm starting to get a little bit more kills. Now I'm starting to like really enjoy what I'm doing and all this stuff. On Game Boy, like you pass the next level, you level up your character. You feel like you're super intimate within your like within this realm. So when it comes to, you know, when we start talking about Rocket League, that's a huge contributor towards, you know, how you feel towards, you know, this whole environment that you want to immerse yourself with. Um, so you told me that you weren't really that immersed with like social media, right? Um, what was it like growing up, learning about these different apps and stuff that you could communicate and look at like news feeds and stuff? What was that all like?
uh See, it's weird because before you ask these questions, I've never really taken the time to think about it, so
Yeah,
it
no,
kind of makes me
absolutely.
stop.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I wasn't really, I guess, in the know, I guess, especially whenever I was a lot younger.
Mm-hmm.
So in a lot of ways, there was kind of a disconnect. I was, for background, and I'll get into it later, but I was homeschooled starting at the age of, I think I was 9.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were, like, in a lot of ways, I guess I was naturally just sheltered from just a lot of social,
Mm-hmm.
like just being out socially like you would be at school or whatever. I was in public school earlier on, and so I had that. Um, but as I grew older, I definitely didn't as much. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I really connected with people online. I played other games like Team Fortress 2, met a lot of people through there, went to the same servers, made a lot of online friends. And so Steam was actually a big, I guess, like if you want to even call it social media or whatnot, where I was keeping up with a lot of friends, talking with people, knowing new players. But it wasn't so much the traditional side of personal media as much.
You felt more connected with gamers. compared to, maybe your neighbor?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I would say so as I grew older. I would say it was neighbors more, probably definitely under the age of 8. I had a lot of like kids that were my age in my neighborhood and all that, and then moved as I grew older. Like my family moved houses, went to a new neighborhood, and I never really got to know the neighbors as much. And a lot more
Mm-hmm.
time was spent at home. At the time, I was homeschooled as well, so there wasn't as much of a reason to get out. And so naturally, because I already was playing video games and I made a Steam account, then I started knowing online people and making online friends, which further gave me reason to just be at home online.
Mm-hmm. How did that feel to not feel like, I don't know if you finally felt grounded and you found your environment, after your parents moved and whatnot, but how did it feel to just move, right?
It was, I mean, in a sense, I was young because I think I was eight,
Mm.
9, 10.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, it was kind of an is what it is type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was kind of a bummer looking back because I was close with other people that were in my neighborhood and all that. But at the same time, I also started homeschooling then, and so I was already at home a little more. And
Mm-hmm.
so in that regard, it was just kind of a transition phase. I didn't really think much of it. I didn't have many, at least emotional or mental experiences with it that were
Mm-hmm.
positive or negative. It was kind of just going with the flow for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, that was most of it.
Mm-hmm. So you spent a lot of time at home if you were homeschooled, right?
Hmm.
So how would you kind of balance gaming with, like school or hanging out with family and like real life friends and stuff? How would you do that?
So for one, naturally a procrastinator. So there was a lot of ways I'd want to put things off to last minute. But the way that my family did it was we would have 4-day work weeks. So if I did
Mm-hmm.
my school like I should, I'd have 4-day work weeks. Friday was like our quote chore day, and then we had the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So that was how things went for a while. Obviously, as I grew older and I could kind of manage my own schedule a little more, then I started procrastinating, putting things in the weekend. Um, but it definitely still took some balance and time. I definitely did want to procrastinate as I grew older, where I would, even though we'd start our work days at 9 a.m., I would maybe finish breakfast by 9:30, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'd, do a little bit of schoolwork and then take an hour or two off in the middle of the day and then watch Pokemon in the afternoon. Uh, but yeah, so it was definitely a good bit of procrastinating, even sometimes spending time with my family and then doing schoolwork later in the day. But
Mm-hmm.
again, it kind of just depended.
So yeah, I mean, even even though considering that you're a procrastinator, you still had your priorities straight, and you knew, I gotta finish my chores and I gotta like do my schoolwork and I gotta do my thing. But aside from schoolwork, you found the time for yourself, right? And
Yeah.
yeah. So when it came to like kind of like growing up with a brother, what was that like? Having a sibling there.
Uh, it was nice. Obviously, like any sibling, we had our struggles where,
Mm-hmm.
bickering, fighting over the DS, and I would play a game, and he'd be like, "Oh, well, now he's interested in the game and wants it from me," and vice versa. But I would say for the most part, we definitely have had a good relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he's also had like kind of his own struggles, and uh, I won't get into too much of his story for his own sake.
Sure.
But basically, he was bullied at school. He's 2 years older than me, and so I was in third grade. He was in fifth. He got bullied at school a lot, and it got really bad. And so that was the original reason that I started homeschool,
Mm.
was because of him. I was doing well in school at the time, and so my mom and dad both, but I remember my mom having a conversation with me saying, "Hey, Kyle, if you want to do homeschool with your brother, you can. If you want to, we'll start you on his work," because he was going to sixth grade. And
Mm.
then my mom said, "Hey, if you can keep up, then you can just graduate early." And so that's actually tying back to what I was saying before. That's part of the reason why I'm graduating early now, was because of that.
Did Wow, that's pretty cool. Like, well, I mean, it aside from the bullying, I mean, I do want to ask you if you had any incidences where you had to manage bullying on your end, but there's a certain drive where it's kind of like, did you ever feel like, accelerating the program was just rushed? Given that you have this inherent like procrastination need, right? or it's kind of like it just happened, you know, you still find the time to like do more than the average student. That's pretty much what it means to be an accelerated student. So, you know, that's still very impressive. So I guess my question is really, did you feel like, like when you accelerated that program, like, did you feel that it was too quick or too fast the first time you did it?
No, actually, it felt like a really smooth transition. So, like I was saying, so I was in third grade and I was doing really well in school at the time. For background, math has always been my strong suit. Like I
Mm-hmm.
learned multiplication when I was five, division when I was six. Public school wasn't teaching multiplication till early as second grade, so I would have been seven, and division until I was eight. So I naturally I was already a few years earlier in that regard, and I kind of in a way felt held back as like cocky as that might sound. And
Mm-hmm.
so in kind of that regard, being able to transition into sixth grade work, at least for me at the time, felt really smooth because I was a little concerned
Mm-hmm.
that it could be difficult, but I found it as a really smooth transition and it really didn't bother me once the first few weeks passed.
That's. I mean, sometimes you have a talent for things and you find that out in school. Um,
Hmm.
you know, if you're good at math, there's so many goddamn things you could do. Like, I wish I was good at math, where I could like do engineering and make like ton of money and just, you know, the thing is, certain paths in your career takes a certain amount of time within school, right? Like if
Yeah.
it's mechanical engineering, you really just have to go for your bachelor's, because aside from that, you know, everything else takes place. Like you pretty much have your work experience, and then that kind of accelerates you forward. But for other fields such as counseling, you have to be in school for like 10 years and have to do a whole shit ton of supervision and all that stuff. So it's very interesting to see what kind of talent and how that leads to like career paths and you know, even though you consider yourself a procrastinator, it's just because you kind of understand your own god-given talent, you know. So that's really
Yeah.
awesome, man. It's good to hear that that you're doing really well in school and whatnot. um what about stress? What is stress? What does that word kind of mean to you?
Ooh, stress. So you intentionally left it open ended, but I'll make it a little more specific. So,
Okay.
uh, at least for me, and I was actually talking about this with a close friend earlier this week. So funny you ask, but a lot of times for me, I think part of the reason I procrastinate is because of stress.
Mm-hmm.
It is because a lot of times that the way I handle it is I like sweeping under the rug, not concerning myself with it, waiting to the last second, like making it like less of a big deal than what it might be because the second I bring it up, then it genuinely gets to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a lot of ways, that's why I want to wait till the last minute to procrastinate because it's like, hey, if I have this big assignment, I don't have to worry about this until I really have to worry about this. If that makes sense.
No, that makes a ton of sense. I'm sorry, hold on.
No, you're good.
Um, so when it comes to a healthy amount of stress and finding that level, uh, it's not really much of a timeline in which you feel that stress. It's more or less that feeling that it just feels kind of overwhelming. Then you're just kind of like, okay, now I need to do it. Now this is something that has to happen because if I don't do it, then goddamn, it's just not going to get done. So,
Yeah.
has there ever been a time where there's been an unhealthy level of stress?
Yeah, no, good question. So I think in general uh with me again, especially like I keep going back to the procrastinating thing, but in that example, so I pretty much almost always have some sort of schoolwork I have to get done
Mm-hmm.
because I procrastinate during a semester. There's almost no times I can remember, at least recently, where hey, I've done all my homework, I've just finished an exam, I got nothing, and I'm just chilling. There's usually always something, and so in that regard, there's always that little bit of stress. But with the way I handle it is me sweeping under the rug. It's like, hey, I don't have to worry about that right now. I'm not gonna worry about that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it's there, it's almost like I'm avoiding the problem. So in
Right.
that regard, there's definitely points where if I were to all at once bring this up and go, okay, like have a check. Okay, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I haven't streamed in a few days. I've been playing well in Rocket League. I got a lot of schoolwork. Where if I truly brought that to the surface and addressed it, I think in that regard I'd have a really hard time with it. But
Mm-hmm.
because I naturally just go, hey, I'm not gonna worry about it, which is an unhealthy way of dealing with it. But just that's my natural instinct. It in a sense doesn't get to me, even though the problem is still just as big.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, you're only 20. Like, and I say that in good faith because, it takes a lot of time to manage stress. For some people, it takes a whole lifetime to kind of figure out how to do that and find their methodology for that. Shit, I'm still figuring that out. And I'm somebody who teaches it all the time, how to manage stress. It takes time and it takes the willingness to figure it out, right? It sometimes takes a little procrastination to figure out stress, you
Yeah.
know. But in all, it's not easy, right? Because we find different types of stress from different um, stimulus, right? Like there's schoolwork that creates it, and then there's significant others that create stress, and then there is um, work stress, obviously, and family stress and all that stuff. So you find it in pretty much every angle. Sometimes you can't just wait it out, and then it happens, right? If there's something that you need to take care of in the moment, is it? Do you find yourself a little bit more problem focused, a little bit more solution based?
Uh, so I'm not sure if I'm fully following. So when you say like problem focus, what exactly do you mean?
It's more about figuring out, okay, so I have a problem ahead of me. Like my mom told me I have to like go and drive and get something, or I have to finish this assignment because my teacher told me, okay, it's not good enough. Can you please give me another assignment? I mean, sorry, you have to redo it within like next 3 days, 4 days. Are you more about figuring out how to figure out the problem within that time? Or is it more about like, okay, you know, what do I do here?
Uh, I mean, if I understand you correctly, I would definitely say more problem focused, where it's just, hey, this is the assignment, this is the time. I just got to get it done. And
Mm-hmm.
if that means that I can't work out exactly how I'd want to, but I
Mm-hmm.
have to, I don't want to say cut corners, but not do things as I'd like in order to speed up the process at all costs,
Mm-hmm.
then that's the route I take. Where if I had more time, maybe if I have to write an essay, I don't just start from the first sentence how I'd want to. It's, hey, I'm going to just jot any thought that comes to mind
Mm-hmm.
rather than something perfect and then figure out along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard, I would say it's definitely more problem focused, where it's, hey, whatever gets this done at the timeline and what it like what I would need to do for the assignment, then that's what it is. Whereas if I didn't have that time limit, then I would be more of a perfectionist. I don't know if that answers your question or
No,
not.
it does. You pretty much said, yeah, I'm solution based. In order to figure something out, I have to find the strategies that work for me and utilize them. So it makes complete sense. What about, let's say, depression, right? When you consider, kind of like isolation, being on your own, and like everything that kind of relates to, things of feeling just kind of like secluded from people. What does that mean to you?
In terms of how I've dealt with that or maybe struggled with it,
Yeah, anything you think.
um, yeah, I know. Personalizing it for me, it's definitely been something I've had to work through. I mean, I wouldn't say I by any means have like clinical depression or anything like that, but there were definitely been times over the years where I would say if someone were to ask me how I'm feeling, like depressed would be the word I'd probably use.
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, it's something that's difficult. Like I was saying, being homeschooled previously and being at home a lot, and now with me doing online school with
Mm-hmm.
COVID and everything, plus already being on my computer for Rocket League since that's currently my job. Yeah, there's a lot of times where, physically speaking, I'm very isolated. Like I'm in my home. Granted, I have my parents and I have a very good relationship with them as background. But still, there's a lot of times where if I can just sit in my room from the second I wake up to the second I go to bed, And so in that regard, it's been something I've definitely had to work through and try to process. And in all honesty, haven't fully done that as well. And like
Mm-hmm.
I've said in the past with stress, not fully addressing it like I should. And so a lot of problems kind of just get swept under the rug that really need to be brought up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been difficult. I would say there was a turning point for me actually when I was 14, but and before then it was a lot tougher with just self esteem. I focus of myself, what I thought of myself versus afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that I've still had to work through.
And depression is just a whole nother thing that takes a while to kind of manage, and finding our own personal strategies is not easy because it's a lot of trial and error and just kind of figuring out what works, right?
Yeah,
um you know I always see you up at night, and
it's all
I
good.
no, no, you're good, man. I see you like late, like at night, like for like 3 or 4 hours. So, like sometimes I'll tune in, watch you play Rocket League because it's actually really fun to watch you play Rocket League.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, man. And I'm like, oh, when's this man sleep and get some time to like take care of himself and stuff. So, and I've figured that it's really kind of based on like your schedule, right? Because you're doing so much during the day, right? You got your meetings, you got your schoolwork, you got everything, and then you have time for you, which is I would gather to be able to stream and do your thing and all that stuff. So I figured that nothing is a set schedule right now. Nothing
Hmm.
is set within your mindset of understanding you because like you're still going, you're still moving, things are changing, and I feel like I don't know, and I might be going out on a limb is that you're kind of used to that. You're kind of used to things changing, but you're used to being able to change with those times. Does that kind of hit it on the ball or
Yeah,
anything to
no,
add?
you're really on. And so even what you were saying before, yeah, I with me streaming late at night, kind of the joke is even with a lot of the people that know me in the Rocket League community is that I'm just nocturnal or I don't sleep. And so yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so there's been a lot of times where I haven't had the healthiest of schedules because I'm either not sleeping much or I'm sleeping during the day. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, like I talked about before, I was talking with a close friend where just kind of explaining a lot of things of just hardships I have with that, just times where mentally I can be just down in the dumps,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of uh, relating a lot of that back to even just my sleep schedule and just how that is, and just that as that becomes healthier, then I naturally feel better, and that being something I need to change. So yeah, you hit it right on the head.
Mm-hmm. Do you have people like who if you were to pick somebody in your family that you would usually go to if you have like if you want to talk about something, who would it be? Who's your
My
number one?
dad,
Your
my dad.
dad?
Yeah,
Awesome, man. Yeah, actually our next question is about your parents, man. Tell me
cool.
tell me about your dad and your mom.
My parents, so they've been, I mean, first off, they've been married for, I think 27, 28 years, a good while. They've had my brother and I. They're very close with each other. They're very close with us. I would say that my relationship with them has grown especially a lot in the last few years. I think part of that is maturing, growing older. Um, and yeah, part of that's maturing and growing older. Part of that is knowing that, hey, I'm not going to probably be at home too much longer, and I want to spend the time that I do have with them, and kind of that realization. Um, but yeah, also as background, like they were both Christian, both and I'm as well. And so from that too, as I've seen them take that, like their faith and like
Mm-hmm.
Christ and all that, take that more serious. And especially me as well. I've also seen my relationship with them grow better too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I definitely would say I have a healthy relationship with them.
Did you kind of as you were growing up, did you felt more and more spiritual or kind of
Uh,
growing into it?
yeah, I would say definitely as I've grown older, and I think part of that is just me growing to understand things more and different worldviews, different perspectives on life, and I think definitely they've had an impact on it as well.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever feel like pressured by your parents to, kind of pick a field or consider certain ideas in your career orientation? Did you ever feel that?
No, not really. I would say my parents. um, even in that regard, have been I would say I've been very blessed and fortunate with that, where they would give me options or they give me opinions that, hey, this is what they feel would be good. But if I see otherwise or I see another opportunity, then, then go for it. And that's kind of even how I felt with streaming. There's a lot of people in the Rocket League community that their parents don't really support them with it. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
really early on, they both supported me with streaming, even when I was much smaller.
That's really awesome. But I mean, I understand the issue you bring up, and that's true. You know, there's some people, such as Saban. We interviewed him a couple days ago. He said that his parents got him into kind of this world, this I guess you'd call it fantasy world, but just the world of creativity. But they couldn't really kind of accept that he was a streamer and like he wanted to do this, and this is his passion, and it's fun, and it's really heartwarming to see someone such as yourself who has parents who really does accept this kind of path because they trust you and they trust what you want to do, and they I guess um, are more focused on satisfaction, you being happy. I mean, being happy is more of a momental thing, but being more satisfied and content with what you're doing and where you're going. So it's really heartwarming to see that you're finding that you have the resources anywhere you find it within your house. Um, what about we talking about your parents? We kind of just talked a little bit about your brother and everything that he went through and kind of where he's going. That's really good. So as a competitive gamer, how did you kind of find your way towards Rocket League? Like, did you play competitive games before Rocket League, or what was that like?
Yeah, no, great question. So Rocket League is the first competitive game the first game I played competitively.
Mm-hmm.
I played games a lot casually when I was younger. So like I said, Pokemon, TF2, League of Legends right before Rocket League.
Mm-hmm.
Like with League, I would play with a few online friends and we would just play casuals and do dumb stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
Rocket League was really the first game I played. And the thing is, I played soccer when I was younger. I loved racing games. And so when Rocket League came out, I thought it was the perfect combination.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it from the get go. I ended up just playing it so much that I eventually started climbing the ranks pretty quick. And
Mm-hmm.
then about a year and a half down the line, I kind of realized, for time reference, around end of 2016, early 2017, was
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, I'm getting pretty good at this game. I'm starting to go somewhere. Like, I wonder where it would go if I like tried to actually improve and tried to really like get higher in the ranks. Fast forward to summer 2017, ended up doing one of my very first like just weekly tournaments. It was like $100 2v2 tournament, and I was on stream
Mm-hmm.
for the first time. I think the community org had like 50 viewers watching. I was losing my mind playing in front of people. My heart was pounding through my chest. So I really say it first started then, and then just kind of saw where the potential was. Ended up doing more weekly tournaments, and then found my way into CRL.
That's awesome, man. And once you kind of pass that first competition, is it like smooth sailing from now on? Like you really don't have that same feeling. I mean, you might have a bad day and you're like, "Oh crap, maybe I gotta play better." But performing on stage like that's a whole nother type of stress, man. So yeah, go
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it was smooth sailing by any means, but I would
ahead.
definitely not. I would say though that the more you're used to being in those pressured environments, the more you get used to it. So, for example, so I play on the Rocket League stream for CRL pretty much every week. So I actually have a game tonight
Mm,
on the main Rocket League channel and all that. Usually, with how viewership is right now, last week it had about 40,000 viewers.
mm-hmm,
And so, but I can say with confidence that me playing in a league right now with a $75,000 prize pool with 40,000 viewers, I am way more relaxed than I was that first $100 2v2 tournament with 50.
mm-hmm.
And so, in that regard, it does just take time, but I wouldn't say it's smooth sailing. There still is a stress involved, but it's a
Sure.
manageable stress.
Not a lot of people, kind of understand that stress. Viewers that see it and that like observe and that are watching the Rocket League channel, like they get hyped and they're like, "Oh, frick! Like there's a lot of money on the line. Like we got like our best players out here. Like this is just gonna be a hell of a game." But they don't understand like the mental preparation that the player has. Do you have like rituals that you have before you start a game?
No, our team usually just scrims.
Mm-hmm.
beforehand and does that to prepare. But I don't do any sort of mental preparation on the day. A lot of it that I would say how I feel mentally prepared is just come from so much previous experience
Mm-hmm.
that because I know it's not my first time. I've been here before. I've done this before. I kind of already know what to expect in a sense, and so I don't really have any of those rituals day to day or like
Mm-hmm.
before a game.
Right. So it just comes well, I mean, it comes naturally, just kind of the mechanics. How many hours just in total have you spent on Rocket League? Let's just
I actually passed 8,000 hours, I think, a few weeks ago.
congratulations, man. That's really awesome. I played competitive squadrons, and I don't know, I have 8,000 hours. I'll tell you that. So that's pretty impressive. That's a record within its own. Did you tell the chat? What did chat think?
When I hit 8,000, usually, because I have a command in my chat, usually when people see it, there's usually some uh, just surprise, like, wow, that's crazy, or oh, wow, I have 200. I wouldn't have expected that, or something along those lines.
Well, shit, man. Hey, it's as you said, experience leads to confidence.
Yep.
A lot of long hours. So I remember you mentioned that you were like top 500, and I didn't remember. I couldn't remember if it was duos or trios or what it was, but where would you kind of rank yourself in the leaderboards now?
So I think what you're referring to is on or in ranked, like on the ranked leaderboards. I think I recently peaked at top 30
Okay.
a week or two ago on the 3v3 leaderboards.
Mm-hmm.
However, the where you are on leaderboards doesn't really transition all that well to your true skill. So I would by no means say I'm a top 30 player in the world. I would say in that regard, it's probably the number is probably closer to top 500 or maybe 1,000 or something along those lines. But just naturally, I played ranked enough and did well in ranked enough where I did eventually climb to number 30.
Mm-hmm. Um, so we're a lot of us are kind of just experiencing the esports world for the first time, right? What is that transition between esports in college and like the major leagues? What's that transition like?
So there's definitely a skill gap, I would say. There's a few players that do play in at least for Rocket League, the Pro League, which is RLCS.
Okay.
There's a couple players in RLCS that actually do play in the College League.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, there is a pretty decent skill gap. I would say like the higher end of the college league usually end up being what's called bubble players, which are
Mm-hmm.
basically people that, for other words, are close but not quite to the pro league. People that maybe on the day randomly will take a series off of its like a low RLCS team or a team close, but it's not likely. But there's still
Mm-hmm.
that potential.
Mm-hmm. Do you hope to be in RLCS one day?
So that is my goal right now. So after school, my personal plan is to pursue Rocket League full time, and that would mean streaming more. That would mean starting TikTok and YouTube and other platforms, and then also put in extra time into competitive, where I'm watching more replays on my own. I'm getting coaching. I'm playing more tournaments, getting that more experience where I can go to RLCS. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I is so when it comes to like a pro team, there's a certain amount of practice hours like with that team that you have to do. Is there like a just like a team chemistry that also goes on there?
I think it's natural, yes, where
Okay.
different players have different play styles, and so usually that means you have to work around them. So there's some players where they're very, very offensive and they like to challenge the ball a lot. They like to be more aggressive. And there's some players that like to play more passive and wait things out. So in
Mm-hmm.
that regard, if you have three players that are passive or three players that are all aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
there's tendency where you could have different kinds of problems
Right.
on both ends. So there is that sense where you would have to get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but naturally too, whenever you do get to that level, you can adapt to your teammates and change your play style a little bit to fit your team.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I didn't know if there's like plays that people like write up, like you have coaches that are just like, all right, too fast, you're gonna go up top and you're gonna like swing around and you're gonna. Nope.
No,
It's
there's
just.
there's nothing like that.
So it takes a lot of brain power within the moment to kind of be in the right place at the right time and do the right thing. So that takes a lot of yeah, that's a lot of brain speed right there. Because we always figure out like Rocket League is a whole another type of physics, right? Like you're a flying car hitting a small little ball to hit the right places to go in. It's like Pong with 3D Pong with like racing cars flying around. Like
Yeah.
when you saw this game for the first time, what was your initial idea? Honestly,
Well, from the get go, I was hooked. Like the idea of it,
yeah.
I loved the fact that I could use like a race car and hit a soccer ball. Blew my mind. I never thought of it. And so for me, I saw one of my very first uh, times I saw the game was I watched a player named Kronovi, who at the
Mm,
time was like one of the like absolute best people in the world on the game. Still a very high level competitive player, a pro
mm,
player. Um, but I saw his montage of it, and he was hitting crazy shots. And I thought to myself, I was like, if he can go do that in this game, then if I got good enough, then I can do that too.
mm,
And so I knew there was a high skill ceiling and I knew that there was that potential, and that's what gravitated me towards it. And so
mm,
even going back to what we were talking about before, seeing the challenge in that and seeing the opportunity that it presented in that competitive aspect of the game is also what gravitated me towards it.
mm. And you had inspirations, right? Like you
Yeah.
had role models within this community that you wanted to work towards. It doesn't take it doesn't take a couple of games to get there, but I'm sure you did a lot of research on videos, watched the different streams, and just kind of immersed yourself within this community in order to like kind of get to where you are today. So that's also a huge like there's a huge cultural like understanding of how your path has led to now, and I think that's like really special, right? So now let's talk about it as a streamer. Like what really got you to becoming the streamer you are now?
So like I said, I was first watching streams after Rocket League came out, so late 2015, I was watching Kronovi streams. There's another pro player named Cooks here. I
Mm-hmm.
watched someone who streamed Rocket League back in the day named A Money, who was a competitive player. And I saw a lot of those streams and thought, man, this seems really cool. It's something I want to
Mm-hmm.
do one day. And I always knew I wanted to after the first few months of playing Rocket League, late 2015. And the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity presented itself June 2018, where I just got on break from school in the summer. I just got a streaming PC, and I was like, man, I really want to do this. And so it ended up just taking off. Really, I was very fortunate to get a few big hosts from other streamers in the community, and
Mm-hmm.
was just consistent enough where I eventually just my viewership went up. I was gaining good support, and so I was able to just do that as income while going to school.
Mm-hmm. So it really started with other streamers kind of noticing you and seeing your skill in the game when you started to see more people kind of raid and starting to host your channel. What was that feeling like knowing that like I'm being noticed, I'm being watched?
Oh, it was huge. For background, the especially back in the day, the bubble scene, like I was saying, in the Rock League community, so the
Mm,
competitive players, people trying to grind for the pro league, it was very small. There weren't many players in that regard, and so it was
mm,
kind of an everyone knew everyone. And so a handful of those players were also streamers, and those are the
mm,
people that ended up hosting. So even though I wasn't known from a just the average viewer, the other people really invested in the scene and also playing competitively knew
mm,
who I was. And so whenever I started streaming, they saw I was live, and they
mm.
ended up hosting me to help me out. But my mind was blown. I didn't expect it. I never asked for anything. It just ended up happening.
You were just there at the right time, man.
Yep.
As Rocket League was growing, you were growing with it, and now you find that you kind of reap the benefits of a successful game. Um, I was thinking about how Rocket League compares to like smaller games that people play competitively, and I was just thinking, anything could have happened, that game to really like expand and become something good. Like Rocket League was just kind of like a success story. Um, but like for any other streamer playing other games, like they would find that same success. So it's really I think it's just really awesome that you found a game that yeah, it has its own success, but you were able to build with that game, and I think that's really special. And I look forward to more of your successes with within the competitive realm. uh, but when you first started streaming, it was pretty slow. Like, did it pick up like I'm sure like it took some time to get to where you are.
Yeah, so I was even whenever I first started, I was averaging 2, 3 viewers, nothing
Yeah.
crazy. It took that time to initially build up, but after I think it was the first week or two of streaming, I ended up getting those bigger hosts, and even
Mm-hmm.
then, even after I got those hosts on my own, I was averaging maybe 10 or 15 viewers. It wasn't anything crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But just as I was really consistent, I saw that number slowly grow from 15 to 20, 25, and then I stuck around probably the 40 to 50 average for a long time. I would get hosts from other bigger streamers that knew me. So I'd maybe average 50 on my own, get a 200 viewer host, and end at 100 to 150 for most of the night. But on my
Mm-hmm.
own, it was 50 for a good while.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, you even from the get go, you saw progress over time. Like
Yeah.
it just felt like it was just like a natural thing on your channel to see a lot of growth. Well, and when you told your family about you streaming and like you picking it up, what was that first reaction like?
Well, it's kind of funny because I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, the week I started streaming, I also applied for my very first job. And so
Mm,
I want to say I was 17 at the time. And so I was just focused on school before then. I'd got my associates. I was transferring to North Texas.
mm,
And so it was in that transition phase that I started streaming, but I was originally going to apply for a job. And so whenever I saw the potential with streaming and me growing, and I
mm,
started like, I would just hit Twitch affiliate and I was getting subscribers, I was like, hey, wait a minute. I think I can actually get more than just a couple dollars from this if I really take it serious.
mm,
And so my dad, for background, is also a huge gamer, and so obviously, whenever I said, "Hey, I can make money gaming," he was all for it. My mom, I love her, but she'd tell you that she's supporting from the get go. She was a little hesitant, but after I showed her just the potential and I showed her like the revenue side of things,
mm,
then she was more supportive and said, "Hey, I understand where you're at and I understand this is a passion. Let's see where this goes." And then if it didn't go well, then let's have a realistic talk of you know having something that's more stable.
Uh, and that was kind of nice that you were able to sit down with them and kind of talk about like logistics. Um, it's not easy. It's always a big investment when you spend time doing the stream and like kind of putting up content and stuff. But you were confident in yourself and you definitely found that you could do something with it, even considering where you are within this competitive realm. So it takes a lot of trust, and I think that's really special that you were able to like find that within your family, right? And I know you told me that like you have a couple of friends that you kind of talk to here and there. What what did your closest friends think?
So it's kind of weird. So a lot of those friendships have kind of been varying over time.
Mm,
For instance, back then, the one closest friend I had was the other person that I did a lot of weekly tournaments with. We did a
mm,
tournament almost every week. We'd play ranked most days for at least an hour or two. We'd hop on a call. And
mm,
so they knew I started streaming and they were excited, but I never had to sit down with them and said, "Hey, I'm going to do this as my job." It kind of just happened.
mm,
Um, I haven't really had a lot of very close friends in my life, and the ones that I have usually varied over time. Sometimes it's online friends, sometimes it's in person,
mm,
sometimes it's for several years, sometimes it's a year or two. So it was never really a stable enough thing where I had one or two go-to friends that time where I said, "Hey, I'm really going to do this." A lot of it was my parents, and then just people in the scene catching on that I was streaming.
mm. Yeah, I mean, the w- people come and go, friends come and go, as you grow and like and you do what you want to do, right? Like even in mechanical engineering, like you find people that just like vibe with you and nerd out with you and do all that shit, and then you just find people that are just like, or you have your old friends that just kind of drift off and kind of do their own thing. So that's a whole part of life and finding the right people around you and I'm sure that you'll have your group of people as you get older and that'll settle with you, right?
Hmm.
uh, so when you're ending your stream and you're just kind of like, I don't know if you go back over the video each night or whatever it is. Um, what are some things that you kind of look at when you watch yourself?
It really depends. There's sometimes where I'm watching gameplay. There's sometimes where I'm even just listening to what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give the example. So as I've grown in the last few months, my chats also gotten quicker at times. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, I really enjoy if someone asks me a question, really answering it, not just giving a one word response, but
Mm-hmm.
trying to elaborate. Well, the problem is that whenever I was much smaller, it worked great because a couple people would be chatting, they'd feel really like noticed and engaged and they'd feel valued and so they'd want to
Mm-hmm.
come back. But whenever chat's flying and I do the same thing, there's times where because I do that, I miss chat.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to shorten my responses to certain questions. Sometimes it's gameplay, watching my rotation, watching positioning. There's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes where I'm calming with people in game. If you've heard of six mans,
Mm-hmm.
there's times where I do six mans on stream, and so I'm listening to comms or I didn't calm this when I should have. It really depends, but it's somewhere in the context of what I'm saying or what my gameplay is.
Mm-hmm. Knowing the scenario that you're in comparison to the responses that you give, and but I mean, you're still self-reviewing, yourself and within the channel, and you still have, kind of goals that you have at the end of the stream that you're trying to work towards. Um, is the goal still about viewership now, or is it just more about just kind of self-management?
So great question. So for me, I am focused on viewers, but to a point, I can't fully
Mm-hmm.
control that, and so that was actually part of a reason. So I actually almost quit streaming about a year and a half ago, July 2019. And that was a good reason is I was hyper focused on numbers. And so in that same regard, I've been doing my best to not focus on that as much and
Mm-hmm.
more focus on my personal effort that I put into streaming. Because I know that if I do that, the numbers will naturally grow. Because I know that my gameplay is good enough. I know that my personality, my content is good enough. So I'm focusing my own like investment, I guess, on that and not so much numbers because I know that will naturally follow if I do the first well.
Mm-hmm. So you had to do a little soul searching there. You,
Yeah, it was huge for me. It was something that like I would say even just as a person has grown me a lot where because of those decisions, my confidence as a person I'd say has grown a lot, especially in the last year or so.
mm-hmm. And with that confidence, you also felt maybe a little bit of doubt that something might go wrong. So it sounded like you had to reorganize or rephrase kind of like your thought processing here and just kind of find something that was more of a healthier thought processing and you know what, maybe I should just focus on how I'm doing, where I'm at, and so forth. um, and this is a really good lead into like the next question, which is how do you kind of mediate within yourself, how if you feel that doubt, what kind of thoughts go into your head, how do you kind of manage it, and so forth.
Yeah, so I really struggle with it. A lot of the doubt for me is in my gameplay. I know for
Mm-hmm.
me as someone who engages in chat, I know that I can there's things I could do better like I was saying before with talking too long on certain subjects I don't
Sure.
need to. But a lot of it's gameplay. If I'm missing too many balls or if I'm not playing the way I'd like to or if I'm losing too many games, there comes a point where I get in my own head about it and it happened a lot before. I would say in the last 6 months to a year my mechanics, just my overall gameplay has improved a lot, and I have a lot fewer those days. Those days are much fewer and farther between. But
Mm-hmm.
before that was big, and so I think that even had a part to play in as well with me wanting to quit streaming because there were a lot of streams where afterwards I would feel just personally I would feel like crap because I'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, man, I played really poorly for one. Two, I complained the whole time. Oh, and my viewers were low, regardless if it was just some big streamer on at the time that I couldn't control
Mm-hmm.
and those things would really get to me. But to answer your question, it's something that's gotten a lot better. But I still, when I have those nights, I really have to like keep keep tabs on myself mentally that I know it's just for a night or it's not that bad or even to my gameplay, even though I think it's bad, the platinum that's watching me thinks it's crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and remembering those things kind of helps the night go by.
Mm-hmm. So even though you're playing the game that you love, you're doing, um, you're focusing more on the competitive side, which you just kind of grew into in Rocket League. It still takes a tax on you, and it takes some time to kind of like self manage and time to like really kind of reorganize yourself. But it is a process that you're still just kind of managing, and that for other competitive gamers, do you think that they're kind of managing the same thing?
I think to a degree, yeah. There's a lot of self-doubt, especially within the competitive scene, because while other people, like, obviously you're gonna have your friends that are also competitive players, but there's people where you're fighting against other people for the same spot. For people
Mm,
that are bubble players, that if you're not likely to make RLCS, but the chances it may be, you're having to play against other people that you know. And a lot of times there are people in the community that are a little bit more rude or more toxic and
mm-hmm,
have a tendency to kind of tear others down. And so you do have a lot of that self-doubt of, oh, I should have beat that person, why didn't I beat them? Or
mm-hmm,
you have a few too many of those unfortunate series in a row and you go, man, am I really cut out for this? So
mm-hmm,
there's a lot of self-doubt that you have to work through. And I think in my own sense, that's where I've gained a lot of confidence in myself, is because I'm in this sort of environment so much that I've really had to have more confidence. And it's really either I'm not cut out for this, let's call it here, or if I'm going to really do this, I really got to believe in myself.
mm-hmm. So now that you've kind of managed within yourself that toxicity is what you were talking about, and now if you kind of gotten that in check, and like in I like to think that our viewers kind of feed off of that stuff, right? Just a little bit, like, yeah, sure, they might feed off the toxicity, but they also feed off like just like general vibes, like like if you're having like, sure, if you're tired, like they might feel a little bit tired, but like they're still there because they want to support you, and they want to see you thrive. And then those days that you're just like super freaking into it, and like you're super in, and like those vibes are just like freaking like blue jay over there. Like that might be a really bad way of putting it, but
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, like I feel like the viewers kind of really kind of build up what's going on within that like community culture. So currently, where do you see that community? Like, where do you see that culture being now?
In terms of just my own stream.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say for me that while I am a competitive player, I definitely am one where I want to be positive. I want to be encouraging. So
Mm,
for background, like I'm saying, with me, being a Christian, one of, like, for me personally, I've said on stream, the bottom like thing for me is like I want to make sure I'm honoring and glorifying God with my stream.
mm,
So for me, that's also in the way I conduct myself. That's in the way I talk with people. I want to make sure I'm being kind, being positive. And so there are times I get frustrated on stream and things like that.
mm,
But still choosing to be kind, because I have the obviously, like, I love Twitch chat, but they're pretty stupid at times. So like being able to properly handle myself in a situation where someone might say something that like would annoy most streamers, me trying to have more self control and say, hey, like, I want to be positive, like I want to be kind to
mm,
this person, maybe they just don't understand. So I would say like more positive vibes, being kind to people, even if people are being toxic to me. Being and engaging with chat, because there's a lot of competitive players where they just focus on the game and that's that.
mm,
I do my best to be the mixture of the two, where I'm not just someone who engages with chat, but I'm a competitive player and vice versa, and be
mm.
able to have the best of both those worlds.
Right, and it it's really funny that you said Twitch can be stupid sometimes, because like sometimes you might just get somebody who's never seen Rocket League before,
Yeah.
come into the chat, and they just ask very basic questions, and then the people that really like come by all the time and check you out, like, and want to actually like get better, and they might be like plat gold, and they're trying to get out of that. I call it the pit, right? Like that point
Yeah,
where like you're never getting like really good players consistently. Um, so like they're trying to learn those advanced mechanics, and they come there, and then they see somebody like, what game is this? And
yeah.
then yeah, right. Like, do you find like your responses being more like mellow nowadays compared to before? And do you find, and I know that you mentioned that being having that religious background kind of I don't know, sets you at ease, creates a little bit more internal peace. tell me a little bit more about how you started out as a streamer until now as kind of like an advanced streamer.
Yeah, so I would say to answer the first question, I would say I'm more mellow than most streamers where if the average if the person went into a pro player's chat and said, "Hey, what game is this?" most people would probably either ignore them or flame them or kind of poke fun at them. Which to a point, I'm not giving any crowd towards. Like I totally get it. For me, I try to be uh more just like chilled out and relaxed. Like, hey, this is Rocket League. There's sometimes though where obviously you have trolls and that's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but compared to before, I was really new to streaming. I didn't really understand this from that. So you'd have the people even with like the Twitch usernames that would be like I don't know, like a Ligma or something like that. As
Mm-hmm.
far as like lig underscore mudballs or something, and I would never
Mm-hmm.
know better. Versus now I know. Um, so it was a much more innocent, kind of naive side before, whereas now I'd say a more discerning side.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same regard, I want to still have that like understanding response to some of those questions that, again, like you were saying, may sound dumb to the average gamer, but to
Mm-hmm.
them, it is just truly just they don't know better.
Right. Right. And I feel like those responses will get you're just gonna have a tendency of just answering the same questions over and over again. I've seen Twitch chats, really ask questions just to troll, like asking the same question over and over again because they know they're gonna get a reaction. But when I come and I see you, like they're asking genuine questions. They're curious. They want to know, like, how the hell do you do that loopy loop and fly and you still hit it and it goes in? Like, I mean, so I think it comes with more with those vibes that I was talking about earlier, and kind of understanding um, uh, where I am in comparison to them. But here's another good question. So now that you've kind of set your feet within the streaming realm and whatnot, where this is your persona that you show on stream, that calm, cool, collect guy. How much of it is as accurate as who you really are in real life?
I would say a lot of it's actually pretty accurate. I think there's times where so if I'm playing, let's say I'm playing ones on stream, and there's someone that's making me a little frustrated, there's usually times where I would, for the sake of everyone watching all that, I'd maybe hold like my tongue more and make sure that I'm not saying something if I'm frustrated or if I'm on
Mm-hmm.
my own, maybe I let out a big sigh or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, or I'm like, wow, I'm losing, this is awful or something. But I would say a lot of it is pretty similar to the same.
You said that you kind of hold yourself back. Like if you're like sighing or gasping, like just rolling your eyes, like you kind of hold that back a little bit. Like that's like such a micro expression, but even that is like that's still like you feel like it's going to give off an impression towards your chat. That's really interesting. I've never actually heard somebody, really talk about holding like a certain behavior or something about themselves. Like your chat might not even notice that you do those things, but there's a certain like micro expression that you hold back that's really just kind of like that you've noticed that maybe other people haven't. Do you notice like some of these things when you're watching yourself, or going back to old broadcasts?
Not really. I mean, a lot of those times are pretty few and far between. I've done a lot better with not tilting at the game,
Mm.
especially as I've played it more. I'd say part of that is just maturing as a person. When I was 15, 16 playing Rocket League, I had a lot of times where I got really tilted. I got really
Mm.
frustrated. As time's gone on, and especially I played it more competitively, I've come to realize, hey, rank doesn't mean everything. If
Mm.
I lose this rank game, it's not the end of the world. It's not that big a deal. Where
Right.
before, that was all I did. It was like, man, if I lose this rank game, I'm not getting my season rewards. Like I'm frustrated as can be. So it was a little bit of a difference in also the weight of the moment for me, where
Mm.
before I was a lot more emotionally invested in that one rank game versus now it's like, hey, not as much. Even if I lose this rank game, the points really don't matter. I'm focused on competitive, and I'm talking with chat. So this isn't the end of the world.
Mm.
But I would say it's a mixture of both being more mature now and handling that better and having more self control and not focusing as much on that one moment.
Hmm. And I think this really leads into our next segue, which is more about the future and what you kind of aspire for your stream. Um, so as a goal, do you kind of is that kind of like something that you're still considering is more self-management and just kind of, you know, considering yourself within the stream rather than just more of your gameplay, or it's more of like, okay, I need to consider my gameplay. I need to make sure that I'm doing the right things like at the right time because I'm still practicing while I'm streaming, but I also need to consider my like my responses towards chat, and I need to make sure that like they're taken care of as well and that the moderators are working. Is that kind of what you see in the near future?
Yeah, so good question. So for one, although I do go back and watch streams, it's not a consistent thing. So I don't finish it
Mm,
immediately stream and go, hey, I want to watch these certain parts back. That
right.
doesn't happen every night. Sometimes it's once a week. Sometimes it's maybe a few times a week. Sometimes it's a few weeks go by and I don't.
Mm-hmm.
It really varies. Whenever I do, I don't really have a specific goal in mind whenever I'm watching. It's more
Mm-hmm.
I'll watch a certain part. Oh, hey, I messed this up. I can work on this. Or, oh, hey, I missed this one chat message. That happens a lot where I'll miss someone's chat message that comes in that's a regular, or even someone that's brand new that's like, hey, I've been here before. And so sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I'll go and DM them and be like, hey, man, I'm sorry I missed your message. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of answer their message in the moment. Um, but as far as going forward, I would say there's definitely an emphasis on both. I want to improve as a streamer, but I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that self management is me just maturing as a person. I don't think that it's so much in the context of solely streaming.
Mm-hmm.
But the competitive side, I would say definitely, because I know for one, I have aspirations to make RLCS, and then two, I know as my gameplay gets better, my stream quality will naturally improve.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I would say it is both. I wouldn't say it's something, at least the self management side is just streaming. It's just growing as a person and maturing.
And you still feel like you have a long way to go until you feel like you fully matured.
In different areas, yes. So
Mm-hmm.
in regard to my faith, so one thing with me being a Christian is that, um, like even now, I wouldn't say that I believe because my parents do in my background, but because I
Mm-hmm.
genuinely do. However, one thing that is really important to me is understanding, hey, why can I believe that the Bible is really true? What are factual reasons behind that? Because if it is true, then those facts will be there. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something that I really want to pursue more, especially whenever I'm done with school, whenever I finish in a few weeks. Right now, I just it's something I don't have much time for just because of everything now. But in the
Mm-hmm.
next season coming up, that's something really big. And so I know in regard to my faith, I have a lot of room to grow. In regard to me as a streamer and my self control, I would already say I'd actually give myself some credit on that. That I already do a pretty decent job in that regard,
Mm-hmm.
and I would genuinely say I am proud of myself for how I do. There's always room to grow though. As far as competitive, to the player base, I'm close to RLCS in my own standards. I still have a lot I want to improve on before I do get there, and I know that. So a lot of that would be road mapping things out of, hey, what is my goal by the end of 2021 with streaming and with competitive? What does it look like working backwards in order for me to get there? What are
Mm-hmm.
the things I'm going to have to overcome and accomplish in order to make those goals happen?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really humble thing that a really humble response that you just gave. You know, you're saying that, you know, you're not. Yes, there's certain things you do need to give yourself credit for. I want you to know that. Like, there's a lot of things that is great about Too Fast, but there's also things that, you know, small things that you are always working on, and you know sometimes. I'll tell you, working on yourself doesn't stop. You know, if you consider all human development, you know,
Yeah.
psychologists, it's just a course of life. Like, that's just things that you go through within each stage. But you're also saying like, okay, well, I'm when I get there, then I'm gonna see an improvement in this part of my life. So it's like you're kind of organizing your life based on knowing what kind of areas you need to mature in. That's really, it takes a lot of strength to say that, you know, and I'm sure that you get that from more of your spiritual beliefs, but it's also true, just within
Yeah.
internal strength. You get a
Hmm.
lot of strength considering your weaknesses, um, and I also want to say like you're also not afraid to being vulnerable, which is huge. Because if you open yourself up, I mean, yeah, there's some things that you're kind of getting used to and that you're working on, but it's like still an idea on your mind because you know that's also a part of that internal strength and growing as a person. So I want to like reflect and say like that it takes a lot of courage to say that as a person.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate that. And I think part of
absolutely.
it plays back to each person has their own weaknesses. And I think that there's a lot um, that even that I know I struggle with as a person that the next guy over who might not say anything can relate to really well.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that regard, it's almost like I have to keep that on my mind. And when I do, it makes it easier being more vulnerable because I know I'm not the only one that's gone through it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Introspection is it's cloudy, but when you really just take the time to reflect, it's you start to see the stars in the sky. I promise.
Yeah.
What about your? So we're talking a lot about, or we did talk a lot about your schedule changing and all that, and this and the other. Is there anything coming up? I know you mentioned finals, right? You have finals coming up soon. Um,
Mhm.
is that going to impact your streaming schedule?
If it does, it would be for a very short time. So even
Mm.
like I said, now I've taken the past 4 or 5 days off streaming. A lot of that being because of school. Part of that being my sleep schedule was absolutely awful. The day before I stopped, like 5 days ago, I think I slept from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Oh wow.
So it's yeah, it's backwards. And so in that regard, I've been wanting to work on that and do better.
Mm-hmm.
So I think finals, I mean, there might be a small change. I think the bigger picture would be after school, what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I would want to have a healthier schedule where maybe if I'm going to bed at 2 or 3 a.m. or maybe 4 a.m., then that's not the worst thing to me if I'm waking
Mm-hmm.
up by 9, 10, 11. But having a completely backward schedule, I wouldn't want because I know where I've been mentally and I
Mm-hmm.
know that I've had a really hard time mentally. And a lot of days are just more taxing and tougher in that regard versus I feel like I have a lot more self control, mental strength. Like if I have a rough day, I can bounce back from it. Versus if I don't have that schedule in place, then I can see it affecting me more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we can. Most of the people that went through school, like we understand that that push towards getting your sleep scheduled the right way. I mean, there's times I pulled all nighters just trying to get work in, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm still alive today. I'm still trying to figure some of my sleep schedule out, but
Yeah.
it's you're still like, like it's not gonna be like a it's really once you get out of school and you start finding your niche and whatnot, then you've really got your sleep schedule down. So
Yep.
I I think you're kind of used to that, right? Given your past experiences of your schedule changing and whatnot.
Yep.
What about for like self care? Like some things to kind of practice for self care. What are some things that you were kind of excited about? I don't know if it's like going skateboarding or freaking doing yoga, Pilates, being a monk. What are some things?
No, no. I think the biggest one for me is working out. So for background, like I said, I
Mm,
played soccer when I was younger. I played hockey when I was older. I stopped when I was about 16. I
mm,
worked out a lot whenever I played hockey because I played on a travel team. And so I love being able to get out, like just work out and be in good shape. That was something that did build my confidence. While my confidence was definitely a lot lower then, that was
mm,
one thing that I think benefited me a lot as a person. And so in that regard, I've had a really difficult time managing that in regard to school because I enjoy
mm,
working out in the mornings. Well, with my schedule, I'm usually asleep during the mornings or I'm about to go to bed. And so I'm really looking forward to having a schedule nailed down to where I can work out more. Part of it
mm,
as well as having more consistent sleep and sleeping during the night. It might sound kind of dumb to the average viewer or listener that's has their sleep schedule in order, but for me that's a really big hurdle for me
mm.
to like potentially jump through. And so the thought of being able to do that and have discipline in that area of my life, I can see it positively impacting so many other things.
Sleep schedule rescheduled.
Yes, sir.
And self care, like when we see that term being thrown around a lot. Like, how are you practicing self care? What are you doing to take care of you? Right? Like, it's so individualistic and it's so, like, it's such a nonchalant thing, but it's really important to the individual because what they're doing, like, people sometimes wake up in the morning, go for a run at 6 in the morning, and then go to work and all that crap. I don't get it, but it works for them and it keeps their mind at bay, and that's how they start the day, right? Some people, they do yoga before they go to bed because they can't sleep without doing this one ritual, right? So for you and getting back to working out, it brings you back to a time that you felt like you were, physically at your peak and that you were doing your thing and whatnot. I mean, yeah, you might feel like you're at your peak with your hands and your fingers and whatnot, but that using your body for like 2 hours running around doing your thing working out, that's a whole different other thing except compared to like brain power, right? So I think if it works for you, then that's absolutely awesome. And if you make a list of it and you stick to it, like that's even more towards what you're trying to do, right? Um, if there was a gamer out there and he's like 4 years old, right? You just started playing video games when you're 4, right? If you could talk to a 4 year old and they haven't picked up the gaming controller once and they were about to game for the first time, what's some advice you would give that little gamer?
I would say enjoy it. Games are obviously fun, meant to be played for fun, but there is definitely a balance. And being able to balance that is something important, especially as you grow older. That's what I would tell a 4-year-old.
Mm. Keep it simple, short and sweet, and to the point, right?
Yep.
What about for a new streamer and they want to get into Rocket League?
Good question. I mean, I would say if it's in terms of having a healthy perspective, I would say don't focus solely on the numbers. Stream
Mm-hmm.
because you enjoy it. Stream because it like provides that satisfaction for you. Because streaming is fun and it's meant to be enjoyed. Even though
Mm-hmm.
once you do grow enough and it becomes a job, there is that analytic side of it. Not letting that take over your entire thought process.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to like enjoy the time with the one person in chat or the two people that are lurking, and being able to enjoy that time. And if that's something that you don't enjoy, then that's fine. Then don't do streaming. Like there's no harm, no foul. But not getting caught up in numbers too early on and let that just take you over.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that from experience for me.
You don't want to see that burnout from new streamers because this is something important to you. It's Rocket League's important to you, but it sounds like Twitch is also important to you. Just kind of given our interview today is that you got like, well, I guess three loves here. You got Rocket League, you got streaming, and then you have your Lord and Savior, right? Your spirituality, your job, and your hobby. That that
Yeah.
that's huge. Like those are three things that I've kind of gone that I've just kind of analyzed, but it's so simple, but it's so huge towards what you want to do and what you want to become, right? So if
Hmm.
you're a streamer, um, what you're pretty much saying is that you know focus on the moment, focus on the people there that are watching, that are kind of analyzing you, trying to figure you out a little bit, and give them the time of day because when you think about math, sometimes, as as a mathematician, math can be stressful. It can be
Yeah.
kind of annoying. So
Hmm.
I think that you brought up a lot of good points today. I think the one thing that we haven't really reviewed with a streamer coming on is about that competitive side. We've talked about competition and whatnot, but it's more about creativity and bringing out creativity, right?
Hmm.
Um, for you, I mean, Rocket League is just we all know what Rocket League is, just the success for the game, but we we know who you are because of who you are really. That calm, relaxed streamer who gets on, who just wants to play a couple of games and have some fun rather than, we're playing a scrim right now with another comp team and I need you guys to be quiet. Like I don't ever feel that when I come in. And I know that you're practicing a lot of that communication, that culture within your team, but it still feels like home. Like you can come in there and you can really enjoy it. Uh, what kind of what else do you kind of want viewers to see? What kind of vibes do you want them to have when they come in and they're seeing you for the first time?
I want them to know that, for one, like, yes, I'm a competitive player. Yes, that is my focus and that is my drive. And I think that that's something that a lot of people pick up on pretty early on. But I
Mm-hmm.
want people to know that I'm not just grinding to be a competitive player or a potential pro player one day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very focused on the individual and I want to be focused on chat as much as I can. That's why it's such a high importance to me,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want it to be, hey, I'm playing my game. Y'all just sit and watch like you're looking over my shoulder at a friend's house. I want to be engaged and I want to be interactive and really know that they're valued and that they're important, even if they're just lurking or watching for a few minutes.
Absolutely, and that goes for all streamers out there, even including me. Is that I've done it. Like people are important. Like when you're in the
Yeah.
people game, everything they say is just as important as the next person. So I think you're right on the ball there. I think my very last question in this interview is, where can I find you? What socials can I find you, and what names are associated with those socials?
So it's pretty simple. So it's 2FastRL on Twitch, Twitter, and I'm starting TikTok soon. I've been saying it for a while,
Oh my
but I
gosh.
legit am. But yeah, I would say 2FastRL, obviously mainly on Twitch. On Twitter, I should post more, but when I do post, they're bangers. And then yeah, TikTok soon.
That's awesome, man. And again, see you're finding more social media platforms just to kind of get your
Slowly.
name out there. I mean, shit, it's a necessity, but TikTok, you're gonna have to do some crazy dances. You're gonna have to come. You're gonna have to make uh you're gonna have to make Rocket League the new game for dances. You're gonna have to beat Fortnite out, man. And I know you could do it. I
Yeah,
believe.
I already had my stream tell me the other day how it'd be a quote good business idea for me to floss for TikTok. So I don't know what that's looking like, but we'll figure that out down the line.
I'd say do a montage. Try to find a way to do a floss with your car, like move its ass or something while you're flying or some shit like that.
Well, I'll figure it out.
I believe, man. I believe. Thank you again for coming on today. Again, this is Too Fast, real life, competitive Rocket League gamer, uh, mental health extraordinaire, and just a real cutie out here. So, you can catch him on really late at night, right? What was it, 1 in the morning to like
Yep, around
four?
1 a.m. Central.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all you insomniacs, there you go. You can watch some awesome competitive Rocket League gameplay at 1 in the morning before you go to sleep. Too Fast, thank you again for coming on board. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. It really has, and thank you for um, talking about your journey as a streamer and as a competitive gamer. And we look forward to seeing more of that journey as time goes on and you pursue your goals as a real competitive was it RLC
RLCS, Rocket League Championship Series.
RLCS and as
Yeah.
a yeah I look forward to it, man. And honestly, I'm an insomniac, so I'll honestly see you later tonight, bro. All right,
Yeah,
man.
no, I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure being on here. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, and I will I'll post it on YouTube. I'll send you a message. I actually what I want to start doing is getting like feedback, like a kind of like a post assessment, just like a quick little survey about
Okay.
your experience here. So, um
Yeah,
yeah, man. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. You already signed the consent form, right? I should be
I did.
asking this.
No,
Okay,
you're good.
good.
I did. I
All
did.
right. Perfect. All right, man. Have a good rest of your day and I'll see you on later.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Peace out.
Peace.
All right, what an awesome guy.